Let's look at JSON Fundamentals Part 2. So for this one, we're going to deep dive a bit into mastering all 6 data types. We're going to look at understanding some of the syntax rules. We're going to try to avoid some common errors and build some complex structures towards the end. So today, strings. We're going to look at quotes, escapes, and Unicode. Numbers, we'll look at the formats and limits, Booleans and null values, looking at objects in detail, arrays in detail, some nesting structures, and common syntax errors. So string fundamentals we'll start with first. So straight off, we've got, this is a string straight at the top here. We've got the string part in the light pink, salmon color, and then the double quotes, or the speech marks character on either side at the beginning and at the end. So that is a valid string. So a couple of rules there. We must use the double quotes, single quotes. So your apostrophe character is not going to work in here. So this single apostrophe here. And no quotes won't work either for string. So we must have it surrounded by those. And then we've got string escape sequences. So if we want to include special characters like double quotes or speech marks inside the string, then we have to use the backslash as an escape character to say, make sure you include this. This is not the end of the string. This is a character that you need to include in the string. So that's what the backslash character does. So it's backslash double quote for this example, and we have that twice. So when we get the string, the output of this first string, we won't see the first double quote. We'll start with the letter S here, the capital S. We'll have all of this, and then we will have just this character in the output, and then the second double quote in the output, and then we won't see this last one in the output. And we won't see the backslashes either in the output. And then the next one is if we want to include a backslash, then we need to escape that character because it is the escape character that we use to include special characters. We have to use a double one in order to just in the output would get one backslash character. And then for new line, we need to do backslash n, which means new line. And for tab, we've got backslash t, letter T there. And then for Unicode characters, if we need to know the Unicode number. And so we do backslash u and then the number that equates to whatever the Unicode character is. And so examples here from Unicode support, we can do normal English language words, we can do other languages like Spanish, for example, we can do special characters like Japanese characters, we can do Arabic, and then you can do emojis, and then all of the other languages as well that are supported by Unicode. And then some common string mistakes. So the correct versions, as I've already mentioned here, we've got the double quotes that we need at the beginning and at the end. Then we've got the backslash double quote if we want to include a double quote into the string itself. Then we've got the double backslash if we want to include a backslash character and the new line characters. So those are examples we've already seen. So some of the common string errors here, using the single quote, so the apostrophe character, we can't use that for a string. We can't have just the double quotes without the backslash here. That will cause an error because it will think this is effectively a string here, starting here, ending here, then this one isn't inside any quotes, and then this is an empty string. So it's not going to be able to process that. Then we've got the single backslash, which isn't going to work, and then maybe an invalid escape. So backslash X doesn't mean anything, like it needs to be N or T or a few others. And then numbers. So the most important thing is there are no quotes around numbers, so we don't have the double quotes before and after it. We just have the number. We can have integer positive numbers. We can have negative integers here. We can have decimal numbers with a decimal point. We can have scientific notation. So we've got the number here and then the E and then whatever is after that. And then we've got small ones as well. So we have quite a few different options for numbers, but still you can note all of them, or none of them rather, have the quotes around them. And then some number limitations. We've got the no quotes one, which we've seen, that does work. We can't put quotes around it. That's going to be a string. So, I mean, rather other way around, you can put it, but this will be classed as a string, not as a number. It will be a string containing the characters 4 and 2, it won't recognize it. So you can't add anything to it. Whereas the one formatted as a number, you can add numbers to it. This one you would have to convert to a number first. And then it doesn't work with hex values, or hexadecimal, doesn't work with octals, binary. Infinity is not a thing in JSON, unfortunately. And also not a number, NaN, is not going to work for you. Booleans, so you might see it, different languages use Booleans in different ways. You might have true with a capital T. I think it's like that in Python. You might have capital true, or the whole thing might be in capital uppercase. You might have true as a string with double quotes. You might use 1 for true and 0 for false. Basically, you can only use true and false, and they need to be in lowercase there to truly match true and false for a Boolean value, no quotes. And then null values, I've mixed up the title there. Null, we've got this and one in green, so it's just null lowercase. We can't have something that's called undefined. Some languages have that, but we do not. So we just have null. And then some object key rules. So remember, we've got the key on the left-hand side, and then on the right-hand side, we've got the value. So some valid ones here. We've got double quotes. We can have hyphens in there. We can have underscore character. We could have it just as numbers if we want, and we can even have it as just an empty string. So it's just 2 double quotes and doesn't actually have a key name. So all of those are valid. Then on the right-hand side here, and some of the invalid ones, this key doesn't have any double quotes on either side. This key has apostrophe characters or single quotes. And this key is correct, but it has a trailing comma after this item. So for all of those reasons, all of those are invalid. Arrays, so you can have them as mixed types, so they can have a string and they can have a number and a true and null and then an object and then another array. It doesn't happen in practice that often, but you might want to store a record like this if that makes sense for your data. More common is nesting of objects in objects. So we might have a user object here, and then we open another curly brace. Within that, we have the whole user object, and then we have a name on the left-hand side, and we have the name as John, but then we might have contact object, and that contact object might include an email and a phone object, and then this phone object might include 2 numbers or 2 values, key value pairs there. So you can see we've kind of got this hierarchy of the phone object is inside a contact object along with an email, and then the contact object is inside a user object along with the name field. Nesting for arrays of objects, so we can have an object here we've called users, and then we've got an array, which is the square brackets, and the first object in that array has an ID of 1, which is a number, and then it has a name of Alice, and then the second object in this array is having an ID of 2 named Bob. And then mixed nesting, so a bit of a combination of both. We have a company here, then we've got a string, then we've got an employee, and this is going to be an object with, or an array of objects rather. And so at the moment, it's just got one object in it. And that object has a field called name Alice, then it has skills, and it has an array of strings inside that one. And then there's an object that contains another array of strings in here for current, and then also a field for completed 15. So you can start to see how your JSON can get fairly complicated pretty quickly. And then common syntax errors that you will see quite often. This will usually be one of the reasons that your JSON is saying it's invalid. So trailing commas is probably the number one most often going to be one of the errors that you discover. So the last item in an object does not and cannot have a comma, but all the other ones do need it. Single quotes around the key or the value. Missing quotes will happen quite often, especially if you're copying and pasting from one place to another for your JSON. Trying to add in comments, either using the slash, asterisk, or double slash or anything like that, they're not gonna work. And then again, using that undefined value. So some languages may have that. Now, white space and formatting. So on the left-hand side here, we've got compact, which is kind of removed all of the spaces that we don't need. And so there's no spaces, there's no tabs, there's no formatting. And you can see on the right-hand side, we do have new line characters. We have a little bit of a tab spacing here before each of these ones. They're all aligned. We have commas at the end. We have no trailing comma here. And you can see that this one on the right-hand side is much easier for you to read. Name, John, age 30, city, New York City. On the left-hand side, the compact one is quite hard to work out what maps to what. It's not too bad because there's only 3 items in here, but you can imagine if it's got 20, 30, 40, 100 items in there, it would be quite hard to read in this compact form. So both are completely valid JSON, but readability matters. So wherever possible, it's better to use the formatted version so that it's more easily readable by us. Validation tools, it's always good to check your JSON. So I use jasonlint.com most of the time. Some built-in browsers will do that for you in the console. VS Code will do it automatically, and there are other online formatters available. Generally though, if it looks wrong to your eyes, it probably is in some way. So today, a few things we've covered. We looked at the string escapes and Unicode. We looked at some of the number formats and limits. We looked at the Boolean lowercase rule, null versus undefined, object key requirements, mixed types for arrays, some of the nesting structures, and the common syntax errors. So for the third video, we're going to actually be looking at the JSON structure a bit more. So we're going to be accessing nested data, looking at the dot versus the bracket notation, which you might have heard about, handling missing values, JSON pointer patch, and just some best practices as well.